basically customizing our business services. So today we'll see how we can, what's the use of Java classes, what we do when we generate Java classes, and how we can implement service methods, client methods, and how we can use business component client APIs. So we'll be talking about more on your implementation part. Okay. So first thing is like how to start with how we what is to generate Java classes. So as I told you previously, also as I told you earlier, also in my previous sessions, we get an option to generate Java classes for our business components. We can generate Java classes for entity objects, view objects, and application module. We basically can do. So what we can do? We can basically you can generate Java classes, and you can modify the default behavior of entity objects. You can basically modify the default behavior of your entity objects. You can do traversing. You can override base class methods. You can basically or whenever you have the main thing here is you can override base class methods. So what does this overriding base class method do? I just show you in a minute also. Let my launch JDeveloper get launch. Okay. Application. So here you see in my screen we can edit the Java. We can go to wizard of entity object, go to Java option, and here you get an option to generate Java classes. Three options you get. One is your entity IMPL classes, which is your object classes, and so one is your definition class. If you see, this is your definition class. This one is definition class. This is your collection class, and this is your IMPL class. So the important class here to take in consideration is IMPL class, EOIMPL. Basically, if you see, they include accessors. You can include accessors. Accessors are getters and setters for all the attributes which you have in all the attributes which you have in the entity objects. So here, what you can do, you can override, you can have data manipulation method, DML methods. You can generate methods to override DML, such as
so
do DML.
What is the difference between object, collection, and definition?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm telling you step by step. Yeah. Okay. So first is like your EOIMPL class. So what does it do is basically, it's used to have accessors, all the getters, setters. Then you have DML manipulations, like you can have this to override DML methods. You can override create methods and remove method. These are also create methods, and you can select to override create method and override method to basically add more logic to your code. If you want to have more logic in your, if you want to have custom logic to create and remove rows in your database, then you can override create and remove method. This is all about EOIMPL. Now let's talk about this collection class, which is basically known as entity object collection IMPL. So basically, this class represents your all the rows from the entities, and it stores it's basically maintain the cache, maintain the internal ADF business component cache. But if we generally don't generate it, we generally don't generate this class until we basically use some cache mechanism, until we maintain some cache mechanism for entity objects. Otherwise, we don't need to generate this entity IMPL class. When we talk about collection class is also this class which we don't, it's a framework class, we don't need to generate it, but it's used to instantiate every object of entity object. It's basically used to instantiating every object. And if suppose we want to change some form, if we want to change some override a method which you want to change, apply to all the attributes, then only we use this collection class. Collection class is basically any logic which we write, it applies to whole collection entity object collection, whole entity a cache, whole entity object instance. So in that case, this entity collection class is used. So generally, if you see, if we right now, if I generate these whole three classes, let me generate whole three classes and say okay. So let's go to one by one. This is the important class you need to remember. So by default, it will have the list of all attributes, their getter and setters.
Okay.
And here, if you do right click, if you go to source override methods, you get all the list of methods which you can override. These are framework methods. And you can search for something. You can select this thing. Okay. So you basically write custom code here if you want. These are like additional. You can write custom method as on it. So here is one thing which you can access your source methods, go and override methods. You can implement interfaces. You can generate more. You can generate more accessors if you want. So these are is one of the important class where we do some logic. Otherwise, sometimes we don't need to do any logic if we don't have too many manipulation. So we don't need to do some validations. So this is one class. Let's go to other class. So this is by default empty. So right now as I told you, we don't need this class. But in case you want to maintain a cache, you want to store the whole entity object in a cache. So in that case, you generate this class, and we write methods for caching logic where we use some framework collection classes to cache entity object. But generally, if you see, it's extending entity cache. You see, so it's by default extend entity cache. So by default, this class is mean. Sometimes we need to extend need to use this entity cache methods to cache more particular things. Then only we generate this class. Or else we don't need to generate this class. Framework automatically use the caching mechanism what is there. And then we have a definition class which is also empty, and it's used to suppose if we want to change some behavior of some attributes. By default, if you want to have suppose we want to change the formatting, we want to give some generic value to an attribute which has to be applied for all the entity object instance, then only we use this collection definition class to generate all the otherwise we also choose to ignore this class, which generally don't use it until we have some complex manipulations, else we don't need to generate this. So these are like three Java classes you need to remember, but important thing is suppose you need to remember that's how we can generate it and which is the most important class, so you need to know something. So in that case, you use entity IMPL classes. You need Java classes. Suppose you want to use custom method and override base methods. You want to override base methods. Suppose you are doing some logic, and before committing to database, you need to basically before committing to database, you need to do some logic. You need to basically store some values, or you need to basically change the value name. So in that case, you basically need some of the custom methods. You basically need some of the custom methods like before commit and after commit. So you have these methods before commit, and so if you see this method before commit and after commit. So these are basically some methods which you probably need sometimes to know like what we can do in terms of data UIMPL classes. So these are like important little things to remember here when you are working with your things. So as you see, you can use remove method, do DML operation, remove. You can set some attribute. You can change. So what is the basic logic? Let me show you one example. So whenever you do source override method, you can override remove. So how you can basically, so if you have, you can call directly setter of any attribute, set I don't know, set employee. You can see what values you have, set department ID. So you have department name before you. So this is like basically the methods. If you want to, whenever this remove, whenever you're deleting a row from a database, it will set the department name of that particular to XYZ. So some small logic which you can add customically when in your entity objects. Same way you can do some DML operations also. Like if DML option is delete, you can perform some delete operation, or you can perform some any other option. Similarly, now the things is next is your some Java code you need to understand. Like you can write some Java code for DB sequence, you can write Java code from some increasing some trigger value. So everything now you can do using some of the base methods. You have some base methods. So by default, if you look by default, like your DB sequence method gets loaded in init defaults. So init defaults method basically load your DB sequence trigger assigned values. So in that case, you can change DB sequence and all. Moreover, next thing, what you can do on all those things. So in entity objects, you can have this accessors, overriding. You can use some custom sorting methods. You can use some sort methods. You can you can use some collection of sorts objects. You can sort your attributes and all these things you can add as in your department's UIMPL classes. Clear? Let's move on to view objects. So we have employee view objects. Here also, if you see, we have Java. So in for view objects also we can generate Java classes. If you see, so here also we get an option to generate 3 Java. Hello.
Yeah, good.
Okay. For view object also you get an option to generate 3 Java classes. These Java classes are number 1, VUIMPL classes, which include bind variable accessors, excuse me, and include some custom data source methods if you want to have. Generate view or YMPL, again this is the important class here, and view definition. You can generate 3 classes, and also you can generate some service data object, which you right now you don't need to understand on it. So basically, if you generate these three classes, view object, view definition, and view row IMPL. So if you look at like if you look now, go ahead and look at it. So let's look at our view object class. So right now, if you look at this view object IMPL class, this is basically similar to like similar to entity object class. This class maintains the instances of your each view object. So whenever you generate the view object class, we basically generate some bind variables, accessors, and all. So these bind variables and all goes into this class. Right now, we don't have any bind variables, so we don't have any attribute defined. Whenever you use to your definition class, whenever we use definition class, so it also it's basically maintain all the if whenever we want to modify all the if you want to modify any some logic to all the attributes, because this maintain the single attribute cache, we write any changes in this method. So this definition class maintain the common object instance for your view object. Now moving on to view or IMPL, which is again this is the important class for your view object. So any manipulation which you do, we need to do it in a view or a field as it contains all the getter and setters for your attribute, as well as if you see it contains all the getter and setters for your other view objects also, all the view objects which it has, like it contain all the getter and setters. So here you can, where here also we can do some manipulation. Here also we can calculate some, if you are doing some calculation on based on attribute programmatically, we can do that. Or if you want to do some calculation, if you want to do some other logic, like we want to get the number of row count, we want to iterate on the number of rows, we want to iterate on the number of columns, we want to iterate on the row count, we want to iterate on
The
row
voice is
count.
breaking.
We can do all those. In this view, you can all execute like method like. So in view objects, now is clear? Object row IMPL and V object row IMPL basically. You can use methods such as execute query. You can do execute query. You can get the application model instance. You can basically get name, get view object, execute where clause, set where clause, and all these things you can do it to view objects. So where if you want to programmatically set where clause, if you want to basically create row, or you want to find row, get row, all manipulation related to rows and gets in the view objects. So these are the common methods which you will see and how you can use. So sometimes we basically we use programmatically object to find a view object. We use programmatic approach to find a set where clause and all. So in that case, we use view objects MPL, like we get the instance of view objects as we said programmatically. I'll show you in POCs like how we do it all programmatically. I'll show you it all in POCs. So you can just get more understanding on it when we start up programming. So view objects basically you can use like whenever you can set the where clause programmatically, you can set the bind clause, bind variable programmatically. Excuse me, and you can use those all phenomena in when we are doing programmatic logic. So programmatic is sometimes very programming logic is sometimes important. Either you can do it from wizard or sometimes you can do it from uh, writing Java code.
Okay.
So in here also we can do some traversing of the links and all. Where we can traverse rows, iterate rows and all. So that's all involve your coding structure. So that we have to show you and all. Next, let's go to your EM object. I showed you yesterday also. Let me show you again. So here is EM. And here also have two classes. Yesterday, I think I told you like when we generated the Java classes. So here is like your you get your EM. EM is basically to get all the instances of your view object as you told you where you maintain all transactions. So here also we have one application module IPL classes. This is like a central class. This is a central class where you maintain the transactions and your all the transactions get committed to the. You can commit your transactions to the database, and you basically perform your all your logic, business logic. If you want all your any service method, if you write, you basically expose it to your client. So suppose if you write any, if we suppose if we write, if we are having some method, if we are having some method like in if we are having some method which you want to which you want to get the value, which we get want to get the value from UI code, which you want to get the value from UI code. In that case, basically we use service method. We can have service method, and we can use this service method to uh, pass it to our UI code. I show you. I will give you an example. How? Let me show you an example. So if you have suppose some method, so if you have some ID and where you are returning some ID, some custom method. So you see, I have this method retrieve ID which I just created. I just need to toggle
Can
it
I?
here. Hello?
Yeah, no, not able to. Okay, okay,
You will see all the list of methods which are available here. You
okay,
just need
okay,
to toggle it here. Now this method is, you just say OK. Now you see you have a method which returns a string and takes a parameter as string. Now you can use this method directly in your UI code also. So from UI code you can pass a string value and it will return you something. I've not written any business logic, but I'm just trying to show you what basically you can how you can expose the methods to client service. So basically these are known as service methods. These are known as service methods, and service methods are basically used to write some logic if you are getting some values. If you are basically basically you want to do some manipulation at from the client from the UI to your model. Basically, there are sometimes requirement like you are getting some input values from your UI. You get some input values like name, bind variables, and all. So you pass it to your service method. You pass it via here. You pass so all values come here. Your and then you get the view object instance and you get all the instances and execute the query, and then you can do a TB commit. So here you can do basic, these are kind of logic which you can do. So you can do some programmatic logics, you can do some programmatic calculations and all. So let me, okay. So that's basically main objective of your service method. So the service methods are used for your invoking of your client interface where you can use service methods to as you could publish. So it's a kind of basically publishing of a service methods to your UI interface. So once you are done with your all the things you can test your business component directly by running the AM and you will test your AM and it is basically get the transaction. So one thing is like when you're talking about AM, when you're talking about application model, let's talk about like transaction and DB transaction objects. So as I told you, transaction objects gets you directly gets you commit and rollback. So from transaction you can directly do a commit, connect, disconnect, and all those things transaction object which you use to basically handle your rollbacks and all. So you can directly get the DB transaction object here in your AM. So in AM, if you look, you will have the instances of transactions, DB transactions. You can directly use some object like DB transactions here. So you can directly do commit DB transactions. You can directly do commit. So this basically transactions and DB transactions are important for you to understand because we have those. We have in AM we have the connections to all those things we have. If you see we have connection to transaction objects where we use to transact. So anything if you suppose if you are basically querying a data record executing a query or you are basically you are as you can directly commit a transaction also from AM. So AM is very important in terms of maintaining conditions, and so you can basically do a commit. You can validate your post commit changes. You can commit a transaction and you can maintain before commit and after commit also in here. You can basically do configure your post changes and pre changes whenever you have to. So these are like very before commit and after commit. As I told you, you can use those before commit and after commit to check validate if your commit is successful. While getting the, you can fetch the attribute name or whatever your particular attribute you are doing a commit. You can after commit you can fetch it and you can see whether the commit happens successfully or not. So these are some of the custom methods which you got to use. You can have your programmatic validations on your entity objects, view objects, and different types of objects if you want to use. So you can have all those kind of programmatic implementation. You can create a new row, you can remove a new row, you can remove a row, you can create a new row, you can do some insert operation, create information, delete operation. All information programmatically can handle now using programmatically using these three classes. One is the entity object classes, one is view IMPL classes, and other is your application IMPL classes. So these three are important, very important classes which you need to remember, which you need to use in your while you are using your ADF business component. Any questions?
No, quite. Can we get some examples for this one
Yeah,
using some
yeah,
Java
definitely.
code?
Yeah. I'll get you examples. I'll get you some uses. So that's what my hands-on session will be with having this example. I'll show you all programmatically. So you can see how I am doing it, and you can use those examples. For any other generic example, did you went to the tutorial which I you gave yesterday?
No, I didn't have time to code.
Okay.
Tomorrow only I just
So
I'll code.
those will have some examples. Just go to them and it will have some examples.
Okay. Okay.